You've been calling yourself lazy for so long that it became your identity. And identities are self-fulfilling prophecies. The moment you labeled yourself lazy, your brain said, okay, that's who we are now. Let's find evidence. And it did. Every time you didn't follow through, every time you procrastinated, every time you chose comfort, your brain filed it under proof I'm lazy. But here's the truth. You're not lazy. You're just loyal to a story that's killing you. Winners don't have different brains. They have different stories. They decided they're the kind of person who shows up, who follows through, who wins. And their brain found evidence for that instead. Today, we're rewriting your story because the identity you're defending is a lie. You've been fighting laziness with willpower, and willpower always loses. This video reveals why laziness isn't a character flaw. It's a symptom of deeper issues: energy leaks, dopamine hijacking, unprocessed emotion, or false identity. I'm going to show you how to address the root cause, not the symptom. You'll learn why action creates motivation, not the other way around, how to identify what's actually draining you, and how to rewire your reward system so that creating feels better than consuming. This isn't about discipline or grinding harder. It's about removing what's blocking you and rediscovering the natural momentum that's always been there. You're not lazy, you're just stuck. And today, you get unstuck. Imagine you have a phone that won't hold a charge. Every morning it's at 100%, but by noon it's dead. You'd think, something's draining the battery. You wouldn't think, this phone is lazy. You wouldn't shame the phone. You wouldn't tell it to try harder or be more disciplined. You'd investigate. What apps are running in the background? What's consuming power without permission? What's silently bleeding the battery dry while pretending everything's fine? Your life is that phone. You wake up with energy, with intention, maybe even with a little bit of motivation. You tell yourself, today's going to be different. Today, you're going to do the thing. But by mid-morning, you're drained. The energy's gone. Scrolling feels easier than creating. Netflix feels safer than risk. Comfort feels more accessible than growth. And you call it laziness. You tell yourself you're weak, undisciplined, broken. But it's not laziness, it's battery drain. And until you understand what's draining you, no amount of willpower or motivation speeches will change anything. Here's what's running in the background: consuming your energy without your conscious awareness. Unresolved relationships, draining your peace. That friend who always takes but never gives. That family member whose approval you're still chasing. That ex whose ghost you're still carrying. A job that demands your energy but returns nothing to your soul. You show up, you perform, you do what's expected, but there's no meaning, no growth, no alignment with who you actually are. Social media that makes you feel inadequate. Every scroll reinforces the belief that everyone else has it figured out and you're falling behind. News that keeps you angry or afraid. Every headline designed to trigger your nervous system, to keep you in fight or flight, to steal your peace. Commitments you said yes to but resent. The obligation you agreed to 6 months ago that now feels like a prison. Expectations you're trying to meet that were never yours. Your parents' dreams, society's definition of success. The version of you that other people need, but that suffocates the real you. Every single one of these is an app running in the background, consuming your energy without your awareness. And you wonder why you can't muster the energy to work on your dreams. You wonder why you feel so tired all the time. You wonder why motivation feels impossible. It's not laziness. You're just trying to function on 10% battery while 1,000 invisible things drain you to zero. Winners aren't superhuman. They don't have unlimited energy. They just close the draining apps. They set boundaries. They said no. They eliminated the energy vampires. They cut off the relationships that only took. They quit the jobs that killed their spirit. They deleted the apps that made them feel less than. They stopped consuming news that made them helpless. They protected their battery like it was the only resource that mattered, because it is. Energy is everything. Without energy, discipline doesn't matter. Motivation doesn't matter. Goals don't matter. You can't build anything running on empty. The first step isn't discipline. It's not grinding harder. It's not trying to willpower your way through exhaustion. The first step is the audit. What's running in your background? What relationships, what obligations, what mental loops are consuming you? And which ones can you close? Not someday, today, right now. What's one app you can close today that'll give you 5% of your battery back? Just one. That's where this starts. I worked with someone, let's call him David, who couldn't understand why he was, quote, so lazy. Great guy, smart, capable, big dreams. But every single day felt like wading through mud. He'd wake up with plans, and by 10 in the morning, he'd be on the couch scrolling, feeling like garbage about himself, reinforcing the story that he was lazy, that he'd always be lazy, that something was fundamentally wrong with him. Turns out, he was carrying his father's disappointment from 20 years ago, still trying to prove himself to a man who was never going to be satisfied. He was carrying his ex-wife's criticism, the voice in his head that said he'd never amount to anything. He was carrying his boss's passive aggression, the constant subtle digs that made him feel small. And he was carrying his own shame about past failures, the businesses that didn't work, the promises he didn't keep, the version of himself he thought he'd be by now but wasn't. All of it running, all of it draining, all of it invisible until we named it. When he finally named them, when he gave himself permission to stop carrying what wasn't his, when he set boundaries with his father, when he stopped letting his ex-wife's voice narrate his life, when he confronted his boss or left the job, when he forgave himself for the past, his energy returned. Not because he became more disciplined, not because he found some magical motivation, because he stopped bleeding energy to ghosts. He closed the apps, and suddenly the battery held a charge. Suddenly, he had energy for his actual life, instead of spending it all on invisible debts to the past. Close the apps. Audit your life. Find the leaks. Your momentum is waiting on the other side of this. But what if the drain is chemical? What if your brain has been hijacked at the neurological level? That's where this gets even more important. Your brain is in a casino right now, and the house always wins. Every time you pick up your phone, check a notification, scroll through a feed, your brain gets a hit. A small one, a cheap one, but a hit. Dopamine, the pleasure chemical. And your brain loves hits. It's designed to seek them. It's wired for reward. So it keeps going back. Pull the lever, check the phone, pull the lever, check the feed, pull the lever, check the likes. Small wins, easy wins. No effort required. Instant gratification. Your brain is in heaven. But here's the problem, and this is where the cycle gets vicious. When you sit down to do real work, work that matters, work that builds something meaningful, work that requires sustained effort without immediate reward, your brain says, this is a terrible casino. No immediate payout, high effort, uncertain outcome, delayed gratification. Why are we here when there's a slot machine in our pocket that pays out every 30 seconds? And it pulls you back, not because you're weak, because your reward system has been hijacked. You've been neurologically conditioned to prefer cheap dopamine over earned dopamine. And the earned dopamine, the deep satisfaction that comes from creating something real, from solving hard problems, from building something that matters, that's where winning lives. That's where transformation happens. That's where fulfillment exists. But you can't access it because your brain has been hacked to prefer the quick hit. You're not lazy. You're just competing with a rigged game. The dopamine from real achievement, from creating something meaningful, from pushing through resistance and coming out the other side, that dopamine is deeper, richer, more satisfying. It's the difference between candy and a real meal. But it's delayed, and your brain has been trained to prefer now over later, instant over earned, cheap over meaningful, sugar over nutrition. Winners understand this. They don't fight their dopamine system because you can't fight neurochemistry with willpower. They retrain it. They create friction for the cheap dopamine and ease for the earned dopamine. They delete the apps. They turn off notifications. They put the phone in another room. They make the casino harder to access. And they make the real work easier to start. They put the running shoes by the bed. They put the journal on the pillow. They prep the workspace the night before. They remove every obstacle between intention and action. Because they know their brain is going to resist. They know the pull of the cheap dopamine is strong. So they design their environment to make the right choice easier and the wrong choice harder. But here's the paradox that changes everything. And this is what you need to understand at a cellular level. You have to move first. You have to create before the dopamine comes. Because earned dopamine is a reward for action, not a prerequisite for it. The motivation you're waiting for only arrives after you start. That's the secret. That's what winners know that everyone else doesn't. Action first, feeling second, always. Not sometimes, always. You will never feel like doing the hard thing before you do it. That feeling doesn't exist. Waiting for motivation is waiting for permission that never comes. You have to start badly. Start small. Start scared. Start with no motivation at all. But start. And the feeling follows. The momentum follows. The dopamine follows. But only after the action. Think about the last time you felt genuinely proud of yourself. Not fake Instagram proud where you post something to get validation. Real proud. Deep satisfaction. Chances are, it came after you did something hard. After you created something. After you pushed through resistance. After you showed up when you didn't want to. That feeling? That's earned dopamine. And it's 10 times more powerful than the scroll. It lasts longer. It builds on itself. It creates real confidence instead of borrowed validation. But you can't access it by scrolling. You can only access it by doing, by moving, by starting. So the cycle breaks here, right now, in this moment. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop negotiating with resistance. You close the cheap casino. And you take one action toward the thing that actually matters. One, not 10. Not a complete transformation. One. One sentence written. 1 minute of movement. One difficult email sent. One conversation started. And you let the dopamine follow. Because it will, it always does. But only after you move. So if it's not discipline and it's not motivation, what actually breaks the cycle? What are the principles that make this sustainable? Because I don't want you to just feel inspired for 3 days. I want this to change your life. First principle, laziness is a signal, not a sentence. Your laziness is trying to tell you something. Maybe you're drained because you're giving energy to things that don't give back. Maybe you're misaligned, working on goals that aren't actually yours. Maybe you're burnt out on someone else's definition of success. Maybe you're depressed, anxious, grieving, processing trauma. Your laziness isn't the problem. It's the smoke alarm. And you've been ripping out the alarm instead of putting out the fire. Listen to it instead of shaming it. The signal contains the solution. Ask, what is this trying to tell me? What do I need? What's wrong? And have the courage to hear the answer. Second principle, motion precedes emotion. You will never feel like doing the hard thing before you do it. This is one of the most important things I can tell you. Waiting for motivation is waiting for permission that will never come. Your brain will always choose comfort, always. That's its job, to conserve energy, avoid discomfort, keep you safe. So you have to override it, not with willpower, with understanding. You understand that the feeling follows the action, so you act without the feeling. You start badly, you start small, you start scared, you start unmotivated, but you start. And 2 minutes in, the resistance breaks. 5 minutes in, you're in flow. 10 minutes in, you're wondering why you resisted in the first place. But none of that happens if you wait for the feeling first. Third principle, you're loyal to the wrong identity. This is the one that's been killing you. And if you keep calling yourself lazy, you'll keep being lazy because your brain protects your self-concept even when it's destroying you. You say I'm lazy, and your brain says, okay, let's be consistent with that. Let's find evidence. Let's make sure we act like a lazy person because that's who we said we are. It's not conscious, it's automatic. Your identity determines your actions far more than your goals ever will. So change the label. Change the identity. I'm someone who shows up. I'm someone who follows through. I'm someone who does hard things. I'm someone who wins. That identity is more powerful than any motivational speech, any goal, any external pressure. Because identity is internal. It's who you are. And who you are determines what you do. Fourth principle, energy management beats time management. You don't need more hours in the day. You need more energy in your body. And energy doesn't come from productivity hacks or time blocking. It comes from protecting yourself from what drains you. Boundaries, rest, saying no, eliminating the leaks, closing the apps. That's where winning starts, not in doing more, in protecting your capacity to do what matters. But how do you actually apply this when you're stuck right now? When you're in the cycle and it feels impossible to break? Here are the practices. First, the energy audit. Get a piece of paper right now and list everything consuming your energy this week. People, obligations, mental loops, apps, commitments, worries, resentments, everything. Then ask yourself, which of these are giving back? Which of these are nourishing me, filling me up, making me better? Circle those. Now look at what's left. All the things that drain without replenishing. Cross out one, just one, and eliminate it today. Unfollow the account, cancel the commitment, set the boundary, have the conversation. One drain eliminated creates 5% more energy, and 5% is enough to start. Second, the 2-minute movement. Don't commit to the whole project. Don't tell yourself you're going to work out for an hour, or write for 2 hours, or completely transform your life today. Commit to 2 minutes. Just 2. Open the document and write 1 sentence. Put on your shoes and walk to the end of the driveway. Pick up the instrument and play 1 note. Movement creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. But you have to move first. 2 minutes. That's it. And if you stop at 2 minutes, fine. You still moved. You still broke the cycle. But chances are, once you start, you'll keep going. Because the resistance is in the starting, not the continuing. Third, the dopamine detox. Delete one app that gives cheap dopamine, just one. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever your drug is. Create friction between you and the easy hit, and replace it with one action that earns dopamine. 1 page written, 1 mile walked, 1 difficult conversation, 1 creative act. Let your brain remember what earned rewards feel like. Let it relearn that the deep satisfaction is worth more than the quick hit. Fourth, the identity rewrite. Write this down. I am someone who blank. Not I want to be, not I'm trying to be, not I hope to be someday. I am. Present tense. I am someone who shows up. I am someone who keeps promises to myself. I am someone who does hard things. I am someone who wins. Read it every morning. Say it out loud. Let it sink in. Your brain will find evidence to support it. But you have to claim the identity first. You have to become it before you see it. So, here's where we land, and I need you to really hear this, because this is the truth that'll set you free. You're not lazy. You're bleeding energy, chemically hijacked, or loyal to a false identity. The cycle doesn't break with more discipline. It doesn't break with more motivation. It breaks when you close the leaks, retrain your dopamine system, and claim a new identity. When you stop waiting for the feeling and start creating it through action. Here's your mantra, and I want you to say this with me right now. I am not lazy. I am reclaiming my energy. Say it again. I am not lazy. I am reclaiming my energy. Because laziness is a symptom, not a sentence. And the cure isn't grinding harder, it's removing what's blocking your natural momentum. The momentum that's always been there, buried under the weight of false identities and energy drains and chemical hijacking. That momentum is still there, waiting, ready. The moment you clear the path, audit your life, close the draining apps, delete the cheap dopamine, move for 2 minutes without the feeling, claim the new identity, and let your brain find the evidence. And watch what happens when you stop fighting yourself and start freeing yourself. You're not broken, you're just stuck. And stuck is temporary. Stuck is a choice you've been making unconsciously. And today, you're making a different choice. Today, you're choosing to become someone who moves, someone who wins, someone who shows up. Not because you feel like it, because that's who you are now. If this hit you, if something inside you shifted while you were listening, I need you to do something. Hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what's one energy drain you're eliminating today. What's one app you're closing? What's one identity you're claiming? and subscribe to this channel because we're breaking cycles together, not staying stuck alone. You're not lazy, you're just ready to start winning again. And winning starts right now.